welcome back to the studio. This week I'm taking you through a hand printing session in my home print studio. So I'm showing you all the little simple printmaking techniques that I often use, plus of course all the happy little accidents that happen along the way when you're hand printing. So I'm working on some photopolymer etchings. These have been printed in my local open print studio with a printing press, and then I brought them back to the home studio. I'm going to be adding collage, monoprint, drawing, whatever they need to make them just a little bit more special. If you don't know me, I'm Ruth. I make videos all about my hand printing artist life from my tiny studio in Bristol, UK. You can get my content straight to your inbox by signing up to my email list, and you get my free guide, How to Be a Rebel Printmaker, 5 Rules You Need to Break to Make Your Best Work on Paper, and that comes free when you sign up. The link is in the description. Also, next year in the spring, I am going to be launching my 8-week hand printing happiness course, and that is going to be all things hand printing in the home studio, and it's amazing what you can achieve in a home print studio. So if you're interested in that, do please join up to the waitlist to hear about it first. Again, the link is in the description. Right, let's get down to some printmaking. So these are the pieces I'm going to be working on. As you can see, they're pretty big. These are actually photopolymer etchings. So that is where you make a metal plate by exposing it to, it's got a coating on it, and you expose it to UV light, and with your painting, your drawing or your photograph on it, and it will basically make a plate exactly the way you've made your drawing or painting. You can see it's actually picked up on these painted marks. I painted with ink on a see-through piece of plastic and exposed that, so you get these really subtle marks, which is lovely. And then behind that, so to speak, I've got some Collage. So that was printed with Collage, which is a piece of light blue printed tissue, hand printed in the studio, and that's kind of sitting underneath the print itself. And then I've already done a little bit of work on these, so there's a bit of just hand rolling, some bit of colour. I just wanted to add a little bit of colour, a little bit of light and movement. So I've got 3 here. This one I love. All this green is basically Collage, so that is tissue paper, marked coloured tissue paper that's already been printed. That's gone through the press at the same time as the print itself, and then I've added this purple at the moment. This needs a bit more light. I think it's a very dark print currently. And this one here, now this one came through the press a little bit strangely. So the Collage kind of got all twisted and a bit funny in the press, and I thought, oh no, that's not going to work. But actually I quite like it. I think it kind of suggests water, flowing water. So I've put a bit more, I've just rolled some colour on already. That's what I've done. Now what I'm probably going to do with this is crop it right down, right to the edge, because I want to cut this kind of bit off here. So that's one thing I'm going to be doing, and I'm also going to be collaging into these, and I'm also going to be probably drawing, probably monoprinting. So a few little things just to bring them out a little bit more. So one of the first things I'm going to do is actually crop this one right down to the edges. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is I don't like this area here. It's gone over the edge. Sometimes I like ragged edges. I really love them. Other times it doesn't work. But the other reason is that it can really help you see the piece a little bit more. What I tend to do, and you can see this from my previous video actually, last week's video, is I tend to crop things, well, I often crop things right down, and then I float mount them. And that means that you mount them just sort of sitting on some mount board, and that will add the nice white space back to your piece if you want it ready for framing and make it look really good. So I'm not afraid to just take off some edges if that's what it needs. And even, of course, you could even crop down further than the edge. So there we go. I can see that a little bit more clearly now without the sort of ragged edges going over the top. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is a bit of collage. This piece here, it's just, I do love this mark, but it's all a bit samey, and it's all a bit of the same tone as well, although this isn't actually going to help with the tone. But I'm going to use some rice glue here. I'm just putting it straight on and then just spreading it around with my spatula. Yeah, it just adds a little bit more interest, a bit of different colour. So yeah, collage is often my go-to, and it's often the first thing I do when I sort of get a print back, because it's like really quick, easy win. It changes something really quite significantly straight away. And then you've got something to react to, something to work with as well. So this is rice glue, or sometimes it's called nori paste, and I get it from intaglioprintmaker.com, but you can get it from other places. I'm not being too worried about going over the edges here because this dries very matte. You can hardly see it at all when it dries, so I don't mind going over a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to place that there. So this is tissue paper that's already been monoprinted with this lovely ultramarine blue. I put marks into the ink before I took the print. So I have a stash of this kind of paper in the studio, which I use for this type of thing. And I also always take ghost prints whenever I'm printing, because ghost prints often are great for things like collage. Okay, just trying to get all the wrinkles out there. And there we go. See it, but there we go. It's added a little bit more interest. Now the next thing I'm going to do is work on this one here. It's very same tonally across the image. So I want to put some dark in here. And the way I'm going to do that is sort of quite a painterly mark, I think. I'm going to try it, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to do something different. But I'm going to get a dark mark across this bottom here. I'm going to do that with a sort of basically monoprint. Now, I've got some Prussian blue here, which basically looks like black when you haven't mixed it with anything. It's very dark. As an oil paint, that's an oil paint. And I'm just going to see if I can just make a little kind of painterly mark here that is kind of nice, gestural. I'm not going to roll this ink out. So this is pretty thick etching paper, so it does take quite a bit of ink and a bit of pressure to kind of get this ink onto the paper. And I'm just kind of trying to do this by eye, sort of where I want it. Okay, let's have a go at that. And you can see this piece of paper is actually a bit too big for my plastic surface. That's okay, I'm only doing a small amount here of monoprint. I'm just using my my speedball Baron to just really apply some pressure to the back of this etching paper. Okay, and this may not come out. Might have to do another go. Okay, nice, I like that. Yeah, now you can see that unmixed Prussian blue looks almost black, basically, when it's on there. And I often use it as just a sort of alternative to black, as a really dark tone to add to a piece. So I'm really pleased with that. That hasn't picked up, as you can see, that hasn't actually picked up all of this ink. It's only picked up the bit that had loads of ink on it, and it's kind of splodged it in a really nice way. So yeah, it's not very controllable, this technique. So I'm just going to have another go at using this very dark Prussian blue to put some line work on a piece. So it does come out very dark when Prussian blue is oil paint. I think it looks a little bit different when it's acrylic or something else, but it looks very blue. But this comes out dark, and it's one of the very few times that I don't mix. I almost always mix a colour, but I quite like this as it comes out of the tube, and I'm only using it to kind of have a kind of dark tone line work, so not very much. Okay, I'm just going to place it down, And I'm going to use my old trusty knife. I'm just going to use the knife handle. Let's just see if that's come out. Yes, it has come out with a really nice velvety monoprint line. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to roll some inks directly onto one of these pieces, which I guess is loosely printmaking. And I'm using just an off-white here. It's a very, very light colour. And just getting a fair amount on my little roller here. And I'm going to come back to this one here and add basically some light rain to it. It just feels it's a little bit dark at the moment, and I'm just going to trust that the roller is going to make some interesting marks, and there we go, it has already. So this roller is actually got quite a fair amount of uneven ink on it. It's quite thick here and quite thin on the edges, and I like that. That usually produces some kind of interesting effect, and there we go. That's quite uneven, but I really like that, and it's added a really light tone to the whole thing as well. And I think what I'll do is then add some light here as well. In fact, I'm going to do that now. I'm getting a slightly more even amount of ink onto that roller now, and I'm just going to very carefully place it along the horizon line and just press down. There we go. And that picks up the highlight from the top onto the reflection there. And I'm just going to gently take away that really stark edge, but apart from that, that looks good. So when I talk about printmaking techniques, actually I'm kind of lying a little bit, because a lot of what I do is not actually printmaking, but it's bringing it back to the home print studio and seeing what the image needs. So it might be cropping it, it might be drawing into it, and I've just got a soft pencil here, rather small one, and I'm just going to draw into this one here. I just want a little bit more definition in this rain, and energy too. So it just adds a little bit more energy, a little bit more movement, and I often draw into prints after they're done. So that's one thing that I will do in the home print studio. And so this is what I have ended up with. They might need a little bit more work, but I really feel they've come on really quite a lot since I first started on them. And just to be aware that the oil paint will stay wet for quite a while, so you'll need to hang these up somewhere where they're not going to get oil paint all over the place. I hope that's been inspiring. Do join my list if you would like to get content straight to your inbox, plus new writing about art and life and landscape and print as well. The link is in the description. If you want to join the waitlist for my 8-week comprehensive hand printing happiness course, which is launching next spring, then also do join the waitlist for that. Again, link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.